think most people are hoping for the next hero in Overwatch 2 to be another support. And that makes sense, but at some point we're gonna need another tank as well. What could that look like? Well, we can look to Mei for inspiration. I don't think we're going to move Mei over to the tank category, but what Mei does that's rather unique is she modifies the map. What if we take this concept and make that the basis of a new tank hero? We could make this new hero go, hey, I'm going to have my E, and this will be the core ability, have 3 charges, and have them be effectively little mini blocks. I don't care if they're made out of ice, I don't care if they're made out of earth, I don't care if they grow up out of plants or nanotech and deploy mechanically, I don't really care, but you get 3 charges of being able to deploy, say, mini blocks of about this size that are not going to fully block big chokes. They might block small doorways, but are something that you can go put up in the face of someone and they have to go around, or maybe use under yourself to help yourself take smaller high grounds. Not this one. Things like that. Okay, so you've got 3 charges of that. You can use it as cover, you can use it to block other people, to make other people run around stuff, and it can modify maps a little bit. Cool. That makes sense. Core ability. How do we interact with it? Let's give ourselves a second ability. Let's look at our shift, and let's make that sort of a shoulder tackle type thing, where maybe we move 30 to 50% faster during it. We do not get any sort of leap during it. We are ground bound. We can steer during it. And if we hit a player, sure, we can send them into a wall, maybe similar to a Doomfist punch. I don't really care. Get some extra damage, maybe a brief stun that's really more of an interrupt, or maybe just the knockback is enough. We'll do that based on what we need to with balance. But you can also use this shoulder tackle to interact with your blocks and send that block sliding across the ground very quickly at another player. And if it hits that player, it carries the same properties as if you had shoulder tackled that player. Okay, now we have a little bit of an interesting interaction. And in fact, let's also rebind our right click on this hero so that we can go, if we use our right click, we instantly pull a block up right in front of us. This gives us the ability that tanks need, like Winston Bubble, like Rhine Shield, like Defense Matrix, to go, hey, we can parry a sleep dart, something like that, by just instantly summoning this in front of us, instead of having the aim with E, flick down, and oops, too late, that sort of thing. But also lets us very quickly combo this plus E to send a block flying. Sending a block flying is sort of the skill shot of sorts for the hero. Okay, that makes sense. This shift can help us get from cover to cover. It can be used in close range to stick on top of some of the faster DPS heroes that have that 10% movement speed buff. It maybe serves as a stun interrupt sort of thing, has a little bit of damage on it, and it interacts with the E. I like it. So where do we go for our Q? Well, again, sticking with this geometry modification thing, what if we just made it so that when you're using your Q, you can erase walls? It can be very temporary. It would have to be temporary, but maybe you throw out acid or in some way dissolve a wall or an area that you throw this at. It obviously couldn't work on floors, can't have people falling through the map, but you use this and maybe for 3 seconds, maybe for 5 seconds. Doesn't really matter because the first second or so is really when it's going to have its most power. It's very similar to a BAP window in that way. Cover that people thought they had is gone and they can get shot through it. That could be pretty cool. Would it be amazing for the hero itself in terms of them just being able to go, oh, now I crush you? No, sure, they could go, hey, we're going to throw a block at you, that sort of thing, and that has some value. But mostly this is something to set up your team and fits with our geometry modification theme. Okay, so really the only thing we haven't touched now, rather than the actual stat numbers, how much damage things do, what cooldowns look like, and you might do some of this stuff, like the shoulder tackle is a shorter cooldown if you had a block rather than a person. I don't really care. You can adjust these numbers as well as the tank's health, hitbox, based on what you need to for balance. That's really is a balanced question. But the last thing we're going to get to is we need some sort of left click. I think that's the least interesting for this hero. For all I care, you can have them throw a rock, sling a rock. I don't really care. Let's give them a slow rate of fire, decent sized projectile that, you know, does moderate damage. Can't be like fair rocket levels of damage because, okay, that doesn't really make sense with a tank. It's just too much, but it can be moderate amounts of damage for a tank. Cool, that works out. This tank still wants to close in on enemies, which is clearly a design space that Blizzard wants for most of their tanks. I don't think we're going to see a lot more Sigmas. I think we saw Orisa moved away from her ranged niche for a specific reason. So you close using your barrier, you close using your E to, not your barrier, you close using your E to block stuff, using your shift to move a little bit. You can go throw blocks up behind people to mess up their retreat a bit in doorways like this one to make them, they could still squeeze through, but it takes an extra second. And that's kind of the hero. So what do you guys think? Do you look at this and go, no, that just feels awful. It would be terrible to play against. I hate the idea of having to get around blocks that this hero could summon up here. That's just like so disruptive and I hate it, and that just feels not FPS-y enough? Or do you look at this and go, yeah, that's a new design space, it could be really fun, we'll figure out what the numbers have to be, but that's a different design space than what we have for other techs? Let me know in the comments down below how you feel. If you're enjoying the content, drop a like, consider subscribing for more thought-provoking Overwatch and Overwatch 2 content, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Temporal out.